Hello from UnitedWeStandPeople.com, where our goal is to empower the people using knowledge. Keep in mind, knowledge is power, and the power is in the people. Here's another quick report from our public investigation team, where all participating investigators are people just like you. This report is part of an ongoing public investigation into how the banks are pulling the wool over many Canadian borrowers by collecting on debts the banks no longer own. The banks accomplish this by carefully indoctrinating their employees, collectors, and lawyers into a train of thought that misrepresents many of the facts pertaining to the Canadian bank loans. That's right, the banks are selling your debt and not telling you. This seems to be the bank's best kept secret. And we, the Canadian people, are about to blow the top off this serious injustice. Are you one of the many Canadians who have had your credit destroyed by inaccurate information being reported on your credit report, but Equifax refuses to fix the problem, or furthermore, just ignores you? Well, this video is dedicated to you. This injustice has been happening for decades, and it's time to put a stop to it. A brave Canadian has gone to the lengths of suing Equifax and is allowing us to follow his legal case, and in doing so, it has become very obvious Equifax lawyer Shwartz is not playing by the rules. Equifax lawyer Shwartz of CHAITONS law firm, located 5000 Yonge Street, 10th floor, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, is systematically taking away the due process from the Canadian people when dealing with Equifax regarding inaccurate credit reporting. There are many lawyers like Shwartz who have been getting away with systematically taking the due process away from the Canadian people, and UnitedWeStandPeople.com, together with the Canadian public, will be putting an end to it by simply pure public awareness. For those of you who don't know, due process is a basic Canadian human right. It's the process for every Canadian to be treated fairly when in conflict. Due process refers to a human right the Canadian has, which allows them to ask reasonable, pertinent questions directed to Equifax lawyer Shwartz, who is obligated by the Canadian rules of court to answer all of the Canadians' reasonable questions with a reasonable response. In a Canadian court case, if either party refuses to answer a reasonable question, then legally and lawfully they would be deemed to be an unreasonable participant, which would imply, by definition, they have lost the debate. We have documented proof Equifax lawyer Shwartz refusing to answer reasonable questions asked by the Canadian. The reason being is he knows if he answers the questions, it would be detrimental to his client's Equifax's position. So instead of Stephen doing his job with integrity, answering reasonable questions, Stephen has elected to intimidate the Canadian by sending emails stating, "You will need to take us to court to answer the questions," knowing full well for the average Canadian to fight large corporations in court, such as Equifax, it is very costly, therefore highly unlikely. Shwartz is knowingly violating one of the Canadian rules of court known as abuse of process. Shwartz is using the court process to intimidate and weed out the average Canadian who cannot afford court costs. This allows himself and his client Equifax to run right over the Canadian with unfair, unethical legal practices, even though the Canadian is 100% in the right. In the Canadian rules of court, it states very clearly, issues which can be resolved without using the court's time should not be brought to court. This would be considered a waste of the court's time. The reason Shwartz is acting in such a manner is he has gotten away with this unethical behavior for years, due to the fact no one was watching. But things have changed, because as you can see, the Canadian people are watching via UnitedWeStandPeople.com public investigation. Make sure to click the link in the description to the full ongoing investigation. The link to the reasonable questions EQUFAX lawyer Stephen Shwartz is refusing to answer is in the description if watching on YouTube, or in the post if you're watching off one of the many social media platforms. Well, that was another quick report from our public investigation team, where all participating investigators are people just like you. Make sure to get involved. Sign up now at UnitedWeStandPeople.com. Knowledge without action is useless. Be part of the solution. All bullies will back down when they know many others are watching. So don't forget to like this video and share with your friends and subscribe.